All right, now these are writing questions because I know that people who come out to book signings, a good 90% of them want to write books. So I like to give whatever help I can to people who are looking into writing because really it's the coolest career. I mean, in any career, if you can do something and get paid for it that you would do for free happily, you really can't ask for much more than that. All right, do you put any personal experiences into any of your writings? Sometimes. I don't do big themes, you know, like I have not had these huge love triangles and had to decide between two really hot men. Unfortunately, not my lot in life. But there are little things, because every now and then something just strikes me as funny. In fact, I got a question in another city about the scientific improbability of someone burning off their fingerprints, just from some little story that Melanie had told. That was autobiographical. I did burn off my fingerprints. It can happen, and for 6 months I could have committed any crime I wanted, but then they grew back. So every now and then I would put something in. I actually did pass out in biology because of other people pricking their fingers. Little things like that I think are funny will make it in, but the bigger stories, not so much. All right, how do you feel about your millions of fans? Do they make you nervous? The only time I really get nervous is when I'm like out in the hallway and I can hear people screaming. That's something I'm not used to yet, but mostly I just get really excited. I find that people who really respond to Twilight, like enough to come out to a signing or write me a fan letter, these are people I get along with really well. I've actually made some really good friends through the whole Twilight experience that I wouldn't have met otherwise, who are just really cool people. And so generally, I think people who read books, are cool people, and then people who read Twilight are specifically cool to me. All right, is it usually easy for you to come up with your stories? It is. It's not so much the stories. Like, I don't get stories. Everybody writes differently. Some people are all about the language and just using words really beautifully. And some people are about plots, and they construct everything really, really carefully. I'm a character writer, so what comes easily to me are the characters. And once you have interesting enough characters, I don't really have to stress about the plots because, you know, you have a girl who has a vampire she's in love with and a werewolf who she's in love with, and they don't get along, and you've got a story. I mean, it writes itself. So as long as I have interesting people to write about, I'm usually good. And I do have several files. I'd say about 12 different book ideas in my computer right now. They're all completely different series. And it's just a matter of when I'll get to them. But they all have, the thing in common is they have a character who really speaks to me. And so, and I'll get to them eventually. All right, when creating a plot, if you have two different ideas, do you go with instinct or think it out thoroughly first? That's happened to me several times. Actually, I have a story I'm working on now where I am just torn between two endings. And this isn't breaking down because that one has been long since finished, and we're still editing out typos, but you know, that's done pretty much. So it's a different story, and I cannot decide between two possible endings. And a lot of it is you have to think it out really carefully and think, okay, if I go this way, this is what it's going to sound like, and this is what it's going to feel like. Am I going to be satisfied with that? But is this way too much? You know, is that over the top? And in the end, you have to go with instinct. But you do have to think things out, because every now and then you'll be writing, and if you haven't thought things through, you'll hit a point where you realize that it's impossible to do whatever it is you were trying to do. You've just written yourself into a corner. So you have to do both. Instinct is what decides it finally. Okay, very last question before I go sign your books. Have you ever had a crush on one of your characters? The real question is, are there any characters I don't have a crush on? There are only very few. I mean, because I even have a crush on Alice, you know. I have a crush on So it's hard to say. Generally, yeah, I can't write someone being in love with someone else, especially when you're writing from first person's perspective, without falling in love with them yourself. So it's a really hard thing to step away from the computer and realize they're not real. It's painful. But that's the price of writing, I guess, is you have to fall in love with people who don't exist. And, you know, I'll take it. It's not that bad. It's a lot of fun, actually. Even if they're not real, I still get to pretend they are. So now I'm going to be signing right over here, and I think everyone should probably sit down until they'll direct you how to proceed. I'd like to say that if you could all be just really nice to the people who are helping out tonight, because they really are here for really long hours, and they're just trying to make it go really smoothly so everyone can get their book signed. And, you know, follow the rules so we can all get along, and the people at the end of the line will get their book signed tonight before 1 or 2 in the morning. That would be fantastic. And you guys are really, really sweet. Thank you so much for coming tonight.